When the idea of writing this campaign story was first mooted, I was frankly a little hesitant, and it was with considerable trepidation that I actually embarked on this. And there was one reason for this, clearly a single reason for this. I had actually not been a part of this campaign. I had not traveled with the PEVAC animators to the field. I had not watched these street plays unfold. I had not listened to the voter and candidate dialogue, or the Amni-Samni dialogue as they called it. I had not distributed pamphlets or brought the information to the doorsteps of the people, which is what this campaign was all about. And I had this misgiving that was I going to be able to do justice to this? I mean, this was a mega campaign. When I sort of found out about the magnitude, it was mind-boggling. Because here you're talking about the State Election Commission, you're talking about hundreds of civil society organizations, you're talking about, what is it, Manoj, 12 states or more, where the PEVACs were launched 14. From 14 states, okay, 14 states. And not hundreds, not thousands, but millions of lives which were touched directly or indirectly by this campaign. So would I be able to actually, provide an authentic account or story of this campaign, because that is really what the book is about. It's anchored in a larger discourse of deepening democracy. There is also a sort of, it's also anchored in the text, in the context of local self-governance, but really this is a campaign story. So would I really be able to do justice to it as a person who is, in a certain sense, one step removed from the field? So then I went home with this huge package, which Dr. Tandon gave me. And I come home and I literally unwrap the campaign, as it were, from that package. And I find that what it contains is actually a resource kit. It had so many reports and so many stories and anecdotes, not just by Priya, but by censored in Bihar, Unnati, translate and sort of filter, and in English, because and I do want to acknowledge the role of my son in all of this, because my first language is Bengali, so this whole business of moving between idioms of Hindi through Bengali into English, a lot of it was rendered possible by my son, so I do want to acknowledge that. He's sitting somewhere here in this audience. So as I looked through all of this, and I also saw that it wasn't just the documents that were there. There was also, there were also posters and powerful photographs, and I'm delighted that one of those campaign posters have actually made its way to the cover of the book. And there was a CD with a video. So at least vicariously, I was able to travel the roads of Rajasthan and Andhra Pradesh, and where the campaigns were held in so many states, and actually see for myself how the distribution of pamphlets went, how I heard some of the jingles, I saw some of the, virtually saw on my small computer screen, some of these voter dialogues being played out. So that, in a certain sense, helped me overcome the fear factor, as it were. And then, of course, there was the other thing. I mean, I could talk to the campaign animators and the strategists and all those right there, and I could get a first-hand impression of what was actually happening on the field right from them. And I particularly want to remember, in this context, Purvi, Priyanka, Alok, Anju, Kamlesh, and of course Dr. Tandon, Manoj and Kaustav, who spoke to me about the message of the campaigns and the change that it wanted to bring. Finally, I was able to do one more thing that helped me reconstruct narratives. I was able to, I know that this is just the tip of the iceberg, but I was able to travel, and I'm grateful to Martha for encouraging me to do this, to actually travel to two areas where intensive PEVACs had taken place, and that was Rajasthan and Haryana. And I think what I saw and heard when I spoke to some of these elected representatives and others who had been touched in some way by the campaign left an indelible mark and was a tremendous learning experience for me. I remember, for example, sort of these snippets that come to my mind as I talk about it now, about the woman who told us that the campaign bag, the PEVAC campaign bag, had given her a completely new identity. I remember the lunch, and Martha, you'll remember this as well, the lunch at the house of one of the elected representatives, where to our amazement, Martha and I found that it was the boy who was hovering around in the kitchen and the daughter who was sort of sharing some pretty non-stereotypical aspirations about her future. And it helped me see not only that the personal is the political, but how the political can sometimes also transpose itself into the personal. And for all of this, I'm truly grateful that I was able to actually go and visit. And I know that it was only just the tip of the iceberg. There were so many states in which this happened. But I think it made a huge difference to the way I understood the campaign. And I also remember this incident of a woman, one of the representatives telling us, because I really wanted to move beyond this normative construction that, well, women hold up half the sky, so they must be included. Yes, we know that. But what do they really make a difference? What is it that they do differently? And that was really, I think, the second generation question that comes up when we look at this. And one of the things that one of the women told me has stayed with me even now. And she said, when we come to, when we are in power, we maintain roads and we maintain waterworks and we don't construct new things, because the moment you construct, you bring in contractors. And the moment you bring in contractors, you form these really shady alliances between village elites and these contractors. So it's not that we don't understand the value of asset creation, but maintenance is really our mantra, and it's just a question of, sort of seeing how we can have our priorities aligned a little differently. And I think from most of what they said and from what really came across to me, time and time again, is that that what was coming through in all these narratives is that when we bring in new political representatives from castes and classes and genders that haven't been represented, you're also going to bring in new contestations on power. And the moment you do that, you will always bring in new struggles and new conflicts. That's inevitable. And I think this realization came home to me graphically, starkly, poignantly, in one comment which was made at a large gathering of representatives, and this was just across the wall at the Indian Social Institute, just on the other side, which Priya had facilitated. And this happened before writing the book, but it sort of got so closely integrated into the recesses of my mind that it kept coming back to me as I was writing. And at some point, this woman was asked that, what does education mean to you? And I thought, well, she'd talk about maybe, new jobs, new opportunities, conscientization, that other favorite word that we use. But she didn't. And she said, and I'm going to tell you this as I heard her say it, she said that for her, education meant Sangharsh karne ke liye shakti, which transliterated would mean the ability or the strength to embrace conflict when necessary. And it left me stunned. And it actually this was a woman who belonged to the scheduled caste, historically excluded community, never participated in panchayats till the correctives were brought in somewhat through the new legislations of 1993. And she was struggling, and this was not a call for violence. There was nothing in her body language or her expression to suggest that she was making a romantic call to arms or anything as dramatic as that. It was just a tired expression on her face, and it was her struggle for life, for livelihood, and also for dignity. And I think this is what has stayed with me, and this is how I feel PEVAC must reinvent itself to make itself more relevant to the needs and aspirations of the people.